Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your sources and unpack them to find the most variable insights.
And today, we're focusing on just one source. It's an interview with someone we'll call Jay. He's a programmer at a big tech company in the U.S.
Right? And this interview, it was done back in March 2023. It gives us a really personal window into, navigating those big choices, high school, college, early career stuff.
Exactly. So our mission today, for you listening, is to explore Jay's path. We want to look at the key decisions he faced and pull out lessons about, well, education, careers, and just trying things out, all based only on what Jay shared in this interview.
It's one person's story, yeah, but it touches on questions so many of us face.
Definitely.
Okay, let's get into it. It's a fascinating story, starting with high school. How did Jay remember that time?
Well, interestingly, he said it was busy, sure, but for him personally, not actually that stressful.
Oh, really? Why was that?
He kind of put it down to his own mindset, said he had a more relaxed mindset about it all.
That seems significant.
Yeah.
So his memories aren't all about cramming for exams.
Not primarily, no. He talked more about, activities, things that sound kind of fun, actually.
Like what?
Well, like climbing the Great Wall in November.
Okay, not your typical high school Tuesday.
Right. Or playing basketball at lunch, singing with friends after exams were done. It sounds like he, found ways to enjoy it.
And he wasn't totally zoned out from the social side either?
No, he was aware dating was pretty common. He even mentioned that some of the younger teachers kind of knew but looked the other way.
And his own experience?
Yeah, he mentioned having a girlfriend earlier and then trying to pursue someone else senior year, though he said that didn't quite work out. So his words were, his emotional life wasn't particularly rich back then, but he was definitely part of that social scene.
That relaxed mindset thing really seems central. You mentioned a quote.
Yeah, he basically said, I didn't feel particularly stressed by high school life as a whole, perhaps because I myself had a more relaxed mindset. It really shows how his attitude shaped things for him.
Okay, so moving on from high school, university. How did he decide where to even apply or go?
Well, the main driver seems to have been his college entrance exam score, his ranking, essentially. He got into a school that was, ranked pretty high nationally, top 3 to 5.
A very common way to decide in many places.
Yeah.
But then the big question, what to study? And here we see that classic tension, right?
Yep.
Interest versus practicality.
Totally. He was actually interested in social science. That's what he liked. But he looked at his father's experience in a similar field and thought, well, maybe not the best way to make a good living.
So practical concerns won out early on there. He also decided against pure science.
Yeah, felt he wasn't really cut out for it, interest or talent-wise. So engineering T, he called it, seemed like a safer bet, a reliable way to earn money.
His thinking was pretty direct, wasn't it? Like studying engineering, becoming an engineer, that'd be good for earning money. Did his parents weigh in?
He asked them, yeah, but he also kind of realized their advice was maybe a bit dated. His dad was thinking about what fields were hot back in the 80s or 90s, like civil engineering, mechanical engineering. Those were big then.
Right. Things change fast. So, considering his score, practicality, and his parents' slightly older perspective, what was the first step?
He chose a broad engineering category first. Didn't actually have a specific major right at the start when he entered university. His initial plan, though, was mechanical engineering. But things took a turn.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting with that 2+2 program he did. Can you break that down?
Sure. So he started university in China for the first 2 years. They call it a tushu. Then for the last 2 years, he transferred to a public university in the U.S., a pretty well-ranked one, and he ended up getting dual degrees.
So he got a taste of two really different systems. What did he think?
He had good things to say about the China experience, especially the practical stuff, like super cheap food in the canteens, and tuition was really low, just a few thousand RMB a year, made it very accessible.
But overall, he leaned towards the U.S. experience.
Overall, yeah, he seemed to find it suited him better, especially the academic side.
What stood out?
A big one was flexibility. Choosing majors, switching majors. Much easier, he felt. He used himself as an example, starting out thinking about psychology, then switching to computer science in his 3rd year. Pretty late.
Well, yeah, that's quite a shift.
And he made that great point. Like, how many 18-year-olds starting university really know what they want to do? That flexibility is key.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What else about the U.S. system did he prefer?
He thought the courses themselves felt more thoughtfully designed, more practical. He said the projects felt more useful, like you could actually apply them.
And the teaching, the support.
Another plus for him, he felt professors were more dedicated, office hours were easier to access, and there were tons of TAs. Like one big class might have 10, even 20 TAs.
Wow.
So he felt he just learned more, academically speaking, because of that structure.
Internships, too. Research.
Yeah, he felt those opportunities seemed more available for undergrads in the U.S. Though he did add a caveat, like maybe that's partly just the scale difference, population size compared to China.
Sure, context matters.
Yeah.
But the big catch for the U.S. system is usually
The cost, yeah, absolutely. He mentioned it was way more expensive, like 50 or 60,000 US dollars a year. So very dependent on family finances.
But for him, weighing it all up, the cost versus the flexibility and the learning, the U.S. system won out.
For him, yes. Despite the cost, the academic freedom and what he felt he gained made it the better fit.
Okay, so he's in this flexible U.S. system, having initially planned for mechanical engineering back in China. How does he actually land on computer science? It wasn't the plan A or even plan B, right?
Not at all. He described it as a really meandering path, definitely not linear.
So walk us through it again. Mechanical first.
Right. Then he got interested in industrial engineering for a bit, operations management, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Then a shift towards hardware. In his third year, he started taking classes on like CPU design, circuits.
Getting closer.
Closer. And then he said it was almost by chance. He took an algorithms class and suddenly discovered programming.
And that was it. The light bulb moment.
Pretty much. He found it interesting. He saw the earning potential was good. And crucially, jobs seemed easier to find compared to some other areas he'd considered.
But he discovered this kind of late in his undergrad, right? Third year, you said. He didn't want to add extra time to finish.
Exactly. He figured trying to cram in all the needed programming courses would delay his graduation. So he made another pragmatic choice.
Which was?
Go for a master's degree in computer science. He saw it as an efficient way to really focus on programming and set himself up for the job market. His thinking was, the hat day. Basically, a CS master's makes finding a job easier.
And his view on doing grad school versus starting work right away.
He saw the trade-off. The cost was maybe losing a year or two of work experience.
But he was okay with that.
Yeah, he felt it was acceptable. He was young, still figuring things out.
Yeah.
His philosophy was kind of like, sometimes if you haven't figured it out, just study a bit more. Take the time.
And that led him directly into the workforce after the master's.
Yep. Finished the master's at the end of 2019, started work pretty much right away.
At a major company,
Yeah.
as he put it.
Right. And he mentioned his first job was directly related to his studies, which is pretty common for new grads coming out of CS programs.
Right.
He got to use what he learned straight away.
Okay, so that brings us up to his early career. Now, looking back at this whole winding journey, what were his big reflections? Any regrets?
Interestingly, he says he doesn't really regret much.
Huh. Why not, given all the twists and turns?
His take on regret is quite philosophical, actually. He thinks regret usually happens when you judge past decisions using the knowledge you have now.
Hindsight is 20/20.
Exactly. He feels that at the moment he made each choice, given the info he had then, he made the best call he could. So looking back and regretting it now, he doesn't see the point. It's about the context of the decision at the time.
That's a really mature way to look at it. It frees you up a bit. So based on that, what's the core advice he offers?
It's pretty straightforward but powerful. His main message is, try more things when you are young. Just try stuff.
And that applies across the board. Academics, relationships, everything.
Yeah, everything. His logic is that the cost of trying, the potential downside, is just fundamentally lower when you're younger.
How so?
Well, things that might seem really risky or have big consequences later in life. When you're young, they often feel like or are not a big deal. You usually have fewer responsibilities, less to lose in a way.
You gave an example with relationships, right?
He did. Said if you really like someone when you're young, just go for it. Don't get bogged down worrying about, say, long distance or other obstacles. Even if it doesn't pan out, hey, you tried, you learned.
Versus later in life.
Right. Later, he thinks other pressures, career, family, finances, might make you use rationality to suppress your ideas, as he put it. You might talk yourself out of taking those chances.
So the message is pretty clear.
Yeah. So when you're young, be bold and do what you want to do. Don't hold back because the stakes feel lower.
His own story really backs that up, doesn't it? He didn't stick rigidly to the first plan. He explored, followed new interests, even if it meant changing direction quite significantly.
Exactly. It wasn't a straight line. But by trying different things, different fields of engineering, hardware, then programming, he found a path that seemed to work for him, combining interest and practicality.
Okay, so let's recap Jay's journey quickly. We followed him from being this pretty relaxed high school kid through a unique 2+2 program spanning China and the US.
Experiencing two very different university styles, shifting majors from mechanical to industrial to hardware interests, and finally landing in computer science.
Driven by a mix of practicality, like earning potential, but also genuine developing interests discovered along the way. And now he's a programmer at a major company.
And the key takeaways we pulled out, well, the contrast between education systems, for one, the huge value of flexibility, especially early on, the fact that career paths are often not straight lines.
And that really resonant advice. Try things when you're young. Embrace experimentation because the cost of failure is often lower then.
So for you listening, maybe you're facing similar choices right now, college, major, career ideas. Or maybe you're reflecting on choices you've already made. Jay's story is just one data point, one example of how someone navigated all that.
And it leaves us with a really interesting final thought, doesn't it? Jay initially chose a general field based on practicality, on earning potential over his stated interest in social science. But then he found a specific path within that practical domain by following his evolving curiosity hardware, then programming. It worked out well for him, combining interest and career success.
Yeah, it raises that question, how much weight should we give to practicality, especially early on when there's maybe pressure to choose something sensible, versus how much should we trust that following genuine curiosity, trying things out, even if they don't seem immediately useful, might actually lead us to a place that's both fulfilling and successful in the long run.
What does Jay's winding path make you think about your own journey or the options you see ahead?